5.4, creation of a parallel regulatory regime. The committee observed that the bill creates a new approval and monitoring system under the Ministry of Internal Affairs. However, many sectors in Uganda are already tightly supervised by strong regulators, these include Bank of Uganda, Financial Intelligence Authority, the Uganda Communications Commission, the Insurance Regulatory Authority, and university councils. Stakeholders argued that the bill repeats work already done by these regulators and may create conflicting rules instead of improving oversight. This duplication can lead to confusion about which rules apply, multiple reporting requirements, and uncertainty for businesses and institutions. For example, both telecommunications and banking sectors already operate under strict regulatory systems. Adding another regulator with similar powers could disrupt systems that are currently functioning well. The committee notes that these sectors are already governed by detailed laws and licensing frameworks. Stakeholders also warn that the bill could create a parallel system, quote unquote, run by a security-linked department that may not have technical expertise of existing regulators. Media organizations, too, pointed out that the issues such as foreign funding, transparency, external influence are already addressed under current laws, including anti-money laundering legislation and the NGO regulation. The private sector representatives highlight the economic impact of the bill, more uncertainty, more regulators to certify, and higher costs of doing business. Stakeholders caution that the bill risks creating duplication, institutional conflict, and opportunities for forum shopping. The committee recommends, therefore, that in light of these concerns, the committee recommends that all institutions and individuals already supervised by a regulator established under an Act of Parliament should be exempted from the bill. Concentration of executive power in the minister. The bill gives the minister responsible for internal affairs wide and layered powers. These include authority to 1. Define the key terms used in the law. 2. Approve or reject the foreign funding. 3. Register or cancel organizations, and determine how the law will operate through regulations. The committee notes that while each of these powers may be common in isolation, their combination in a single office creates a system where participation in economic, civic, or institutional activities depends heavily on the minister's approval. This raises deeper constitutional concern, not just about administrative efficiency, but about the overall design of governance. The committee elaborates these issues under 3 major themes, from regulatory oversight to discretionary control, where stakeholders observed that the minister's power and the role goes beyond implementing the law. The minister effectively controls access to the law itself, and the minister can decide who falls under the law, who controls access to funding, grant or withdraw legal status, and shape how the law functions in practice. This, we noted, it risks turning the framework into permission-based system where individuals and organizations must seek approval to operate instead of following clear, predictable rules. It also has constitutional implications. This concentration of authority raises significant constitutional concerns. It weakens the separation of powers by placing too much control in one office. It reduces checks and balances from independent institutions. It increases the risk of unfair or arbitrary decisions, especially where the bill lacks clear procedures, timelines, or appeal mechanisms. A system that relies on discretion rather than clear rules undermines legal authority. Undermines legal certainty and public trust. We also looked at reframing sovereignty. The committee notes that many legal and governance submissions view this more than an administrative matter. They see it as a shift in how sovereignty is exercised. Instead of power flowing through established institutions and the people, it risks being concentrated in one single office. From human rights perspective, any limitation on rights must meet 3 tests. 1, legality, necessity, proportionality. The bill does not clearly demonstrate how these standards are satisfied. We therefore recommend, the committee recommends that to preserve the bill's objective, I beg. Can I conclude? Thank you. Let me read. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
How many minutes do you want to conclude?
Yeah. I need 5 minutes and I conclude.
5 minutes. I'll add the other side also 5.
Okay. The committee recommendations. To preserve the bill's objective while restoring institutional balance and constitutional compliance, the committee recommends the following amendments. 1, limit the application of the bill to honorary agents of a foreigner. Exclude the application of the bill to Ugandan citizens residing outside Uganda. Remove the power of the minister to declare any person a foreigner. Remove the restriction on recruitment and employment of a person who are abroad from disruptive activities. Provide for the elements of an offense. Avoid unnecessary bureaucracy in the implementation of the policy. Replace ministerial approvals with the declaration of funds to the relevant regulator. We looked at disruption of financial and economic systems. We also have recommendations. On that one, to safeguard national interests without disrupting financial systems, the committee recommends shifting from broad approval-based controls to a targeted risk-based approach by 1, protect everyday financial flows by exempting personal remittances, routine banking transactions, and legitimate business financing. Replace blanket approvals with disclosure requirements, reserving prior approval only for high-risk activities such as funding linked to political influence. Adopting a flexible risk-based declaration system developed with financial regulators and aligned with existing anti-money laundering frameworks. We looked at the vagueness and criminalization of risks. Right Honorable Speaker, we recommend that we align the bill with constitutional requirements of legality and certainty. The committee recommends the following amendments under vagueness and criminalization risks. The committee recommends clearly define all criminal offenses, specifying prohibited conduct and the required intent and the harm addressed. Reduce the penalty of 20 years to 10 years and a fine in the case of legal entity for 200,000 currency points to 1,000 currency points. Limit offenses to conduct that poses a real and a demonstrable threat to national interests, avoiding broad terms that may capture lawful activities. Include measurable thresholds or criteria such as scale or impact to guide enforcement and reduce subjective judgment. Insert a saving clause to protect legitimate activities such as business operations, research, journalism, advocacy, and civic engagement. Introduce procedural safeguards including enforcement guidelines, written reasons for decisions, and access to administrative or judicial review. We looked at the impact on academia, health, and innovation systems. And we recommend that the academic institutions, research bodies, health and medical facilities legally operating in Uganda be exempted from the bill. We examined the certificate of financial implications because this is a requirement of Public Finance Management Act. We looked at the cost. Right, Honorable Speaker, we interrogated it. Actually, the details are there. We concluded that, therefore, since in conclusion, Right Honorable Speaker, in conclusion, the committee undertook extensive consultations, and the views received reveal a shared concern. Across all submissions, there is broad agreement on 4 key points. The bill's objective is legitimate, but the definitions and applications are overly broad. The regulatory approach duplicates existing legal institutional frameworks. Excess power is concentrated in the minister, and the bill's impact could extend across the entire economy. In response to the above and the concerns, we interacted with the learned Attorney General again. And now we conclude that the committee, therefore, recommends that the bill proceed to second reading, subject to proposed amendments attached thereto, and any further improvements this August House may consider appropriate.
Honorable.
Right, Honorable Speaker.
I want this part where you interacted with the Governor of Bank of Uganda. Read.
Okay. In response to the concerns, the Attorney General proposed areas for review which were supported by the Bank of Uganda. The committee has carefully considered these proposals. We have also incorporated these amendments where applicable in the bill. I want to report that, yes, we interacted with the Governor Bank of Uganda actually twice. After we had gotten proposals, we flashed to him, and the Governor Bank of Uganda also agreed with the committee and sent us more amendments, which we incorporated.
Thank you.
I need to report.
Thank you.
I need to report, however, that this majority report that was signed by more than 3/4 membership also has minority reports. In fact, because it's my duty as the reader of the majority report to report the House that we have 5 minority reports. 5 minority reports.
Are there 5?
I beg to report, Right Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Can I have now the minority report? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Right Honorable Speaker, I present this minority report, and we have agreed with our colleagues who also dissented that this will be the order of presentation. I will present first, followed by Honorable Wilfred Niwagaba, to be followed by Honorable Gilbert Olanya, to be followed by Honorable Abdallah Kiwanuka, to be followed by Honorable Betty Namboze, and lastly, the Honorable Medad Segona Lubega. And we have
and the rules of the time still apply.
Before I begin to present, if you may allow, I can address you on that. when a member of a committee dissents singularly, the weight of the report demands that we be accorded the same time frame, Madam Speaker.
Which rule is that?
Each
Which rule
report
is that?
Under Rule 215, Sub-Rule 3, it says that a member dissenting or members. And the reasons are in this report, Madam Speaker, you'll see. If I may address you briefly, in the committee...
I am giving you 35 minutes.
This is a...
All of you. Honorable members, before we continue, we have Honorable Tim Bernard from Maruzi. Welcome, Honorable Tim. And then Honorable Tibiase Peace from Jinja. Welcome. And here, join me in welcoming our new members. Yes.
This is a minority report, Madam Speaker, in substantial dissent of the majority report of the Committee of Defense and Internal Affairs.
Honorable members, can we listen to the report?
And the Committee on Legal and Parliamentary Affairs on the Protection of Sovereignty Bill 2026. This minority report is brought under Rule 215 of our Rules of Procedure of Parliament. In the opening remarks, Madam Speaker, it is critical that today, when a draconian bill is presented to this Parliament for enactment into law, the minority is persuaded by some of the most memorable speeches in the political history of Uganda. Honorable members of Parliament, please pay attention to the contents of this speech attributed to President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni in the early 1990s. This is what he said. I open the quote. Depending on the nature of the state, in a given society, law can be an instrument of oppression and exploitation, or of social justice and progress. Law is not synonymous with justice. It is not always synonymous with justice. It can be, but it may not be. What is legal is not necessarily what is just. Law can be used by the strong against the weak, by the rich against the poor, by the minority against the majority. Historically, law has been used by the oppressor against the oppressed. During the slave trade period, enslaved people were owned and disposed of like chattels, and it was perfectly legal to own a slave. The NRM government is strongly opposed to having laws on our statute books which serve the interest of the minority against the majority of the people, or in which any way promote to serve the injustice or advance backward interest in our society. We close the quote. The minority shall, where necessary, refer to the speech above for the purpose of reminding ourselves as legislators and fellow Ugandans. And 4,
Right, Honorable Speaker. But we want to benefit from the citation. When you're citing, you're quoting somebody, you've stated the date, you could also tell us where that speech was
You
made.
can find the source.
Right Honorable Speaker, I am well conversant with the rules of procedure of this House. That's why I've confined myself to this report. I will be available to clarify if necessary. Members can listen, I will respond to you. Thank you. The minority report, where necessary, shall refer to the speech above for the purpose of reminding ourselves as legislators
Can
and fellow
Ugandans.
Ugandans.
Can I have a copy? Yeah. Me, I don't. Me, I'm analog.
And fellow Ugandans, for we have come from the far, we have come, and the apparent U-turns and reversals that are being made for whatever reasons being advanced, which reasons have no place in shaping the sovereignty of the people of Uganda. Areas of dissent and statement of reasons for dissent. Area 3.1, violations of the rules of procedure of Parliament. Madam Speaker, during the consideration of the Protection of Sovereignty Bill 2026, the co-chairpersons violated several provisions of the rules of procedure of Parliament of Uganda. Rule 135 of the rules of procedure is instructive on reference of a bill to the committee as follows. Sub-rule 1, whenever the bill is read for the first time in the House, the bill shall be referred to the appropriate committee appointed under these rules. Sub-rule 2, the committee shall examine the bill in detail and make all such inquiries in relation to the bill as the committee considers expedient or necessary, and report to the House within 45 days from the date the bill is referred. 3, except in the cases of very minor amendments and subject to Rule 138, all proposed amendments to a bill referred to the committee shall be presented to the committee by the person proposing the amendment, and the committee shall scrutinize the amendment together with the bill. 4, the committee may propose and accept proposed amendments in the bill as the committee considers necessary, if the amendments, including new clauses and new schedule, are relevant to the bill. The minority observes that the committee violated sub-rules 2 and 3 in as far as it did not examine the bill in detail and further did not make all such inquiries in relation to the bill. In the view of the minority, the decision of the committee through a vote on a motion by Honorable Fox, Odoi, Oyelowo for an omnibus adoption of all clauses of the bill and the amendment by the learned Attorney General without examination and inquiry violated Rule 135. The minority, Madam Speaker, also observed that the Protection of Sovereignty Bill 2026 was proposed by the Minister of Internal Affairs, Major General Retired Kahinda Otafire. Sub-Rule 3 restricts the latitude to propose substantial amendments to only the mover of the bill, which is the Minister of Internal Affairs. Only minor amendments may be proposed by any other person who is not the proposer to the bill. With all due respect, the learned Attorney General proposed 18 amendments, all quite substantial in nature, which amendments the majority unilaterally adopted and relied on to pass the bill in the committee. The committee sought to have rejected the committee ought to have rejected the substantial amendment proposed by the learned Attorney General outrightly. To even make it worse, Madam Speaker, the new amendments were laid before the committee in form of a new bill. Rule 135, Sub-Rule 1, confines the committee to a bill read for the first time in the House and referred to the committee. The committee is stopped from directly receiving bills not read in the House and referred to it by fraudulently bypassing this House and smuggling an amended version of the bill to the committee, an illegality that goes to the root of parliamentary procedure and practice was committed and cannot be cured by any explanation at all. Madam Speaker, the minority further observes that no sooner had the learned Attorney General purported to present the amended Protection of Sovereignty Bill 2026 to the committee at about 12 noon on Thursday, 30th April 2026, than His Excellency the President, through his address to Ugandans at about 4 p.m. on the same day, withdrew instructions from the learned Attorney General. Instead, President publicly assigned Honorable Dennis Amson Obua to ensure that the bill concentrates on what he calls sovereignty of policy decision-making. In the practice of law, there is nothing professional as humiliating as a client withdrawing instructions from you and sharing it out with the public outright. No wonder, since then, neither the Attorney General nor the Minister of Internal Affairs ever attempted to appear before the committee or the House. The House must therefore not entertain the two on anything to do with the Protection of Sovereignty Bill 2026, since the President withdrew the vote of confidence in them. The minority, Madam Speaker, formed the view that Honorable Obua Hamson, having been given fresh instructions as per the written expression of the President, ought to have immediately sought audience with the committee to present the instructions given to him. Was it an instruction to withdraw the bill, or what was it? Despite the insistence of the minority to invite the Honorable Hamson Obua under Rule 135 Sub-Rule 2 to make all such inquiries in relation to the bill, as this was the most expedient, the co-chairpersons, Honorable Kajwenje Wilson.
Honorable Diana, sorry for interruption. My presumption is that when you bring a minority, you bring your points of departure, not procedure. Flavia, points of departure, not a debate on the procedural ways.
Madam Speaker, respectfully, this is one of the points of departures that I had.
Which one? Which one?
Under subheading 3.1, I said areas of dissent and statement for reasons of dissent as provided in the rules. The first was violations of the rules of procedure of Parliament. And I am explaining under Rule 135 that the committee ought to have examined and on its own move to go and inquire, to make inquiries. And my point is, having come to the attention of the committee that Honorable Obua Hamson was assigned, the committee ought to have moved itself to request Honorable Obua to come and substantiate. It goes to the root of my dissent, Madam Speaker.
So the committee went to Honorable Obua? Or they should have?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The co-chairpersons were evident. Madam Speaker, this is important. The co-chairpersons, Honorable Kajwenje Wilson and Honorable Baka Mugabe Stephen, were evidently partial, hostile, and continuously switched off the microphone of members in the committee they perceived to be against the bill. Contrary to the established practices of availing physical copies of submissions of stakeholders to members of Parliament at the retreat, members of Parliament were instead told to physically get copies to members of Parliament. Instead, were told that physical copies could not be availed since Parliament was on a weekend. The views of Madam Speaker, views of selected stakeholders were instead sent to members on WhatsApp to read on their phones. Members who were not on WhatsApp or whose phones could not open the WhatsApp were effectively denied critical document. Madam Speaker, the privileges of a member of Parliament were violated to the extent that some of the members of the committee had to jump on border to travel to Nassau Road to print the stakeholders' document for their own reference. A passionate plea for the committee to adjourn until Monday, when Parliament is open, for purpose of printing or photocopying the document was turned down. But Right Honourable Speaker.
Point of procedure. I am rising.